I am a 28-year-old male and my stepmother, aged 49 years female, has a strong passion for party planning and has taken on the role of organizing every family event since she married my dad. I've never enjoyed these gatherings, mainly because she's very controlling and gets upset if anyone voices complaints. Still, I played along for my dad's sake, as he believes it helps her feel included. I'm set to marry my fiancée Jane, aged 26 years female, this July. We got engaged in early 2021, but Jane became pregnant shortly after, leading us to postpone the wedding to focus on our son. So, we've had a long engagement. From the start, my stepmother has tried to take over our wedding plans. She's complained, contacted our planner, and even showed up unannounced at Jane's dress fittings. Despite our repeated requests for her to stop, she continues. My dad wants us to accommodate her, but she clearly resents not being in charge of the wedding or having the title mother of the groom. In addition to our baby, we also have Luke, aged 4 years male, Jane's younger half-brother. Jane gained custody of him a few months into our relationship after his parents passed away. I moved in with them during the pandemic and have been a part of Luke's life since he was a baby. He doesn't call me dad and refers to us as his sister and his original poster, but we love him as our own. Stepmother, however, has a strong dislike for Luke. She accuses Jane of baby trapping her way into the family, and this criticism intensified after our son was born. My dad adores Jane and the kids but feels pressured by stepmother to avoid babysitting Luke, so we often rely on Jane's brother and sister-in-law to look after the kids, as their children are close in age. Last Sunday, we had an event planned, but my brother-in-law was out of town with his family. Jane's other siblings live in different cities, as do my mom and sister. My dad agreed to babysit at our place, and we went out. When we returned, we found both kids crying, stepmother yelling, and dad struggling to calm everyone down. Apparently, Luke had told stepmother that he and our son were going to be the ring bearers, and she lost it. She screamed that Luke wasn't family and would not be included. The scene was chaotic. It was the worst we've seen from her. We immediately banned her from our house and our wedding. Dad is furious and has sided with her, even convincing a portion of his family to boycott the wedding, including my stepbrother, who supports his mother regardless of the truth. Jane and I refuse to change our stance. Most of Jane's family supports our decision, but one aunt suggested that perhaps stepmother is acting out because she feels unwelcome in my family. I'm done with my family enabling her behavior. I love my dad and want him at my wedding, but I'm prepared to go no contact if it means protecting my family. Edit. I may have accidentally deleted a key paragraph, but we did press charges. The day after the incident, we took Luke to the pediatrician and collected all possible evidence. We had photos and nanny cam footage. Although the physical attack wasn't on camera, there is footage of her yelling and Luke crying before and after the incident. We made sure she didn't get away with this. Edit 2. For now, I want to say that Luke is okay. He saw his counselor the day after the incident and will continue therapy. We're giving him extra support and love, and he's gradually feeling better. Update 1. Jane and I have decided to go no contact with my dad and stepmother. We haven't spoken to either of them since the incident, and I don't plan on reaching out. Any communication is being handled by my younger sister. She fully supports us, but will maintain minimal contact for now. I've decided to follow Jane's approach. Forgive if there's a genuine apology, but never forget. If my dad or stepmother ever truly understand their wrongdoing and offer a sincere apology, we're open to forgiving them, though it might be difficult. However, we will not ignore or let them forget the harm they've caused our family. For now, neither of them will be allowed near Luke, our baby, or any future children, even if we decide to forgive them later. It's worth mentioning that, while my family adores my dad, most aren't fond of my stepmother. She had 2 failed marriages before marrying my father, and my family didn't like her from the start. They adored my dad's previous girlfriend, who was cheated on when he left her for stepmother. Since then, stepmother has been controlling and manipulative, trying to impose herself as the family matriarch by planning every family event. Growing up, I disliked these parties because she always made them about herself, including Christmas and birthdays. The rest of the family was indifferent, but they never really liked her. With Luke, it was different. Most of my relatives didn't meet him until COVID restrictions eased when he was already 2 years old. He's a bright, lovable kid, and with few young children in the family, everyone immediately took to him. I believe stepmother was upset that Jane and Luke were welcomed into the family so easily, contrasting with her own experience, but I can't confirm that. Stepmother was also frustrated about not having a role in the wedding. She tried to pressure us into letting her officiate, making stepbrother my best man, and suggesting her sister's daughter as our flower girl. She also suggested my dad walk Jane down the aisle, even though Jane's eldest brother was already enlisted for that role. Stepmother was disappointed that my family wasn't as involved as Jane's and kept making comments about how things would be different if she were in charge. Despite everything, there is no excuse for her behavior towards a child, especially if it stems from petty jealousy. Since I haven't spoken with my father, my sister has been updating me on their actions. I've learned that my dad and stepmother have spun a story to the rest of the family that omits Luke's injury and the abuse charges. They've implied that Jane and I banned them simply because we were annoyed with stepmother and decided to take it out on my dad as well. Fortunately, most of the relatives who disliked stepmother already believed the truth and have apologized, criticizing my dad for his support of her. Those who don't believe us or think we overreacted are no longer welcome in our home. These are mostly people from my dad's generation, so I'm not surprised. Their willingness to protect someone who hurt a child just to make my dad happy has reinforced that I don't need them in my life. Stepbrother is still in denial. I understand his feelings, as I love my mom too, but his denial is frustrating. So he's also banned. It's disappointing because we were close growing up, but I don't regret the decision. Jane's siblings, who I'm closer to, are a great support system. Update 2. First off, I may disappoint some of you. It looks like stepmother might face little more than a slap on the wrist. Jane and I are still discussing our options with our lawyer, but we're not rushing into anything just yet. It's still early days, so we're trying to avoid jumping ahead of ourselves. On a positive note, we're starting the process for a restraining order against stepmother. We're using the evidence we gathered right after the incident, including the nanny cam footage and photos of Luke, to support this. I still haven't spoken to my father. My sister is still in low contact with him, but is seriously considering cutting ties completely. Since she's the only one in our family still talking to him, he keeps asking her about me and whether I've calmed down yet. According to her, he's frustrated that half his family won't speak to him but still doesn't understand why. I told her she doesn't have to be the go-between for us, but she insists she'll stop when it feels right, just to clear up any doubts. There is no question that stepmother attacked Luke. He told us immediately when we got home, and my father even confirmed it in a failed attempt to defend her. He didn't try to hide it from us. He gave Luke an ice pack. That, and the fact that stepmother was too busy yelling at Luke for being a whining brat to deny her actions, are the only positives I can find in his response. For those who guessed that stepmother is younger than my dad, you're right. She's actually 5 years younger than his previous girlfriend. They started dating when I was around 15. Stepbrother is only a month older than me. She'll be turning 50 later this year. She had him when she was 21 and married his father a year later. Both of our kids are doing mostly okay. Luke is back to running around the house in his Superman costume whenever he's not busy with other activities. He's had a few nightmares this past week and has asked to sleep in our bed twice. We don't mention my father around him, and he's continuing to see his counselor. Update 3. I didn't plan on updating before the wedding, but something significant happened that I wanted to share. The good news is we successfully obtained the restraining order. The bad news is that Jane and I had to see both stepmother and my father at the court hearing. This was the first time we'd seen them since we expelled them from our home over a month ago, and neither of us was looking forward to it. We left the kids with Jane's brother and sister-in-law, so at least Luke didn't have to face them. The hearing was quicker than I anticipated. I have to give my father some credit. He was smart enough to realize they had no chance of winning. We had a mountain of evidence against them. But between the nanny cam footage, Luke's medical records, and my sister's collection of every text and email stepmother had sent about the incident, their case was doomed. Stepmother hates talking on the phone, so there were plenty of those texts and emails. They didn't even bother to get an attorney. The judge granted us a protection order against stepmother. She's now barred from coming within 500 feet of us or our property. We're changing all our locks this week, and I'm considering changing my phone number as well. Leaving the courthouse, I finally felt safe for the first time since this nightmare began. Jane was almost in tears of relief when we got to the car. We picked up the kids and went to McDonald's with Jane's brother and his family to celebrate. Later that day, my father called. The restraining order doesn't cover him, so he still has the ability to reach out. Jane and the kids were in bed, so I took the call. I didn't expect an apology or a change of heart, but I decided to give him one last chance to address things directly. He started with some awkward small talk, but I told him to get to the point. He asked if the restraining order was really necessary. I made it clear that stepmother was never coming near Jane or the kids again, and that the order was just a formal way to enforce that. I easily countered his excuses. He then launched into a rant about family, praising stepmother as a godsend and recounting everything she's done for him and my sister since she entered our lives. Update 4. After being engaged for over 2 years, Jane and I finally tied the knot last Saturday. We are still getting used to calling each other husband and wife, but it feels good to finally be married. The wedding was incredible. The kids had a blast. Our extended families met for the first time, and we danced so much that I could barely move the next day. Luke was a fantastic ring bearer, holding our son's hand as they walked down the aisle. Aside from my aunt getting completely intoxicated and needing a wheelchair to be escorted out, everything went off without a hitch. It's been 4 months since we secured the restraining order against stepmother. Things have been mostly quiet since then, and I wouldn't have it any other way well, except for the total silence, but that's not always possible. I was never really worried about stepmother showing up at the wedding, especially with the restraining order in place. It's illegal for her to come near us, and we made it clear that any attempt to do so would result in a call to the police. My friends still advised extra security measures, most of which we followed. Stepmother didn't show up, as expected, but I believe that investing in security was money well spent, so no regrets there. My stepbrother and I exchanged birthday wishes, and he also texted Jane for her birthday back in June. That's been the extent of our contact. The door is still open for him if he wants to apologize. My father has stopped trying to reach me. We haven't spoken since April. He's still attempting to contact my sister, but she's ignoring him. After she went no contact with him, they had a major argument over the phone about stepmother's treatment of us over the years. There were harsh words and old wounds reopened, with my father defending stepmother on almost every issue. My sister called me in tears afterward. I wanted to call him and give him a piece of my mind, but she advised against it. She's doing better now. She hasn't blocked him but isn't taking his calls or responding to his texts. She's received 3 messages, a weak apology, one on my birthday in May, and a long rant after neither of us wished him a happy Father's Day. Despite our differences, he's still our father. He's not wrong about that. I love my father and always will, but I can't be around him anymore. I've closed that door, but I'm not locking it completely just yet. He knows what he needs to do if he wants to reconnect with his family. I doubt he'll take the necessary steps, but if there's even a slight chance he might, I'm open to reconsidering. Jane suggested keeping the door slightly ajar, and while I'm less optimistic, maybe it's worth holding on to a bit of hope. Jane, however, hasn't forgiven him or stepmother. She's always been fiercely protective of Luke, so it's no surprise this whole mess has deeply affected her. I was worried she might blame me, but she just called me foolish when I voiced that fear. I've been seeing a therapist for a few months now, and it's been more helpful than I anticipated. I've come to realize that stepmother stepmother's behavior towards me growing up was worse than I'd always believed, and it's been a relief to finally express my feelings and work through them. Final update. Hey everyone, here's a quick update on what's been happening. I might skip over some details since I've been quite busy and tired lately. I first met up with my stepbrother for coffee back in August. After a conflict with stepmother, he managed to get the truth out of her regarding some lies she had told accusing Luke of being a bully, bad-mouthing Jane, and more. This revelation led him to rethink his relationship with his mother. After talking with his therapist, friends, and reflecting on his upbringing, he finally realized I wasn't exaggerating about what she did to Luke. He had wanted to reach out back in June, but didn't want to distract Jane and me from our wedding preparations. Over the past 4 months, my stepbrother and I have been working on rebuilding our relationship. We've been meeting regularly for coffee or lunch, discussing his mother and the impact of her actions on our lives. Jane started joining us in October, and the kids saw him again for the first time about 2 weeks ago. Things were a bit awkward at first, but we found our footing. My stepbrother is also making efforts to mend things with my sister. By early November, he had completely cut ties with stepmother. Jane and the kids are doing great. Luke turned 5 in September, and our youngest will be 2 in early February time. Really flies. We're spending the holidays with Jane's family in Brazil while my stepbrother is with his girlfriend. Life is good. That's all for now. I'm signing off for the moment, but I'll update if anything significant happens.